What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here, and welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus check updates, the two new upcoming packages, part one, the physical infrastructure package, and part two, the next stimulus package, which is $3.5 trillion. Yeah, which is about or just under double the $1.9 trillion stimulus package, the third stimulus check package. So, really, there's a lot of room in there, almost double the size of the third stimulus check package for them to include pretty much anything the Democrats want to include in there. If they want to include a fourth stimulus check, they can include it. If they want to include an extension of the child tax credits to go for several more years, they can include it. If they want to include adult tax credits, similar to the child tax credit, these monthly checks that are going out for children, if they want to do that with what they're calling the adult tax credit monthly checks for adults, low income adults, they can do that in this next package. If they want to include mortgage assistance, rental assistance in this next package, they can do it. Pretty much anything in the kitchen sink, if they want to include in this next package, Social Security increases in this next package, Medicare 2.0 in this next package, they could do it. This next package is $3.5 trillion. Some reports are saying that by the time all is said and done and the Congressional Budget Office comes in and actually scores how much everything is going to be in this next package, that it could actually be over $5 trillion. So when it comes to basically saying what could be included in this package when it comes to how much money they're willing to spend, there's enough money for everything. It really just depends on what they want to put in this next package and what's going to be in the next package after this. As come October 1st, the Democrats get a whole nother round of reconciliation cards. And the Democrats are going to continue to pass packages until the next midterm election, which is November 2022. Now, for this to happen, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says that part one, the physical infrastructure package, has to pass first in the Senate, and then the Senate has to pass part two, the stimulus package, through the reconciliation process. Now, remember, part two, the stimulus package, the American Families Plan, this $3.5 trillion plus package is going to pass with the Democrats only. Not a single Republican is going to vote yes for it. Not a single Republican voted yes for the third stimulus check package. I don't know why. That's just, it is how it is, right? So once they vote yes on this first package, then the Senate is basically going to then immediately go and start drafting the next bill and voting on the next bill. So that kind of leads us to where we are today on part one. Remember, part one has to pass, then they immediately go into part two. So this is where we are right now. Check this out. Senators say they have a deal on major issues in the infrastructure talks. Yes, as of today. Senators announced a bipartisan infrastructure deal, but it is unclear if it has the votes to pass. Also, Google postpones return to work until October, will require vaccinations. Yes, we'll get to that here in a minute. More and more vaccinations are being required across the United States, including by the government. I'll get to that here in a few minutes. Yeah, by the government. But first, let's go to this deal here. That the senators are saying that they have a deal on the major issues in the infrastructure talks. Senators say they have reached a deal with the White House on the major issues in the bipartisan infrastructure talks. Quote, "We now have an agreement on the major issues. We are prepared to move forward," said Republican Senator Rob Portman from Ohio, who led the negotiations for the Republicans. Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema, one of the moderates, led negotiations for the Democrats and said that President Biden supports the agreements. Quote, "We are very excited to have a deal," she told reporters, adding the text would start being released later today. The agreement is a sharp U-turn from Monday when the talks appeared to be on life support and the senators were scrambling to pull their deal back from the brink of collapse. Negotiators appeared close early this morning, and five key Republican negotiators huddled with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, describing him afterwards as open minded on the deal. You know, Mitch McConnell, the open minded Republican. Republicans are likely to discuss the agreement during their closed door lunch on Wednesday. That could be happening here, maybe during filming of this video. And in a sign that a deal was imminent, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced that senators should be prepared to vote to start debate as soon as Wednesday, which is today. So, senators not only have announced that they have a deal, that they should be prepared to start debate, to start, I'm sorry, that they should be prepared to vote to start debate. Remember, that's the initial vote. That's the initial vote. Remember, there's several different votes that kind of go with these proceedings. So they literally could be voting the initial vote as early as today. Chuck Schumer says, the Senate Majority Leader says that senators continue to make good progress on both tracks of legislation. That's part one and part two, which is part two is the stimulus package. Senators should be prepared to vote again on cloture on the motion to proceed on the bipartisan infrastructure bill as early as tonight. To start debate in this vote, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will need the support of 60 senators, meaning that at least 10 Republicans, if all 50 Democrats, will vote yes in advance, basically to vote yes to advance this bill. So basically, they're wasting no time at all. We have a deal that has been announced by this bipartisan group of senators. The Republicans will have a closed door meeting later today, possibly right now as a filming of this video. They may have an initial vote later today. I'll be having more news on that later today. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says we're wasting no time. We could be voting on this later today. Remember, there will be a series of votes. And remember that the timeline of this is they have to pass part one, and then they're not going to pass part one fully. Remember that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said that part one and part two are going to be passed together at the same time, that they're kind of tied together. Nancy Pelosi has put an insurance policy on these. Basically, she's going to make sure that the stimulus package is passed together. So what she has said is that part one of the physical infrastructure package needs to be passed in the Senate with the Republicans and the Democrats. Okay, great. Send it over to the House. She will put it on the warmer. And then the Democrats only pass the stimulus package in the Senate. It's kind of weird because the Republicans have nothing to do with passing part two. But nonetheless, she wants to make sure that they both get passed. She wants to, I guess, make sure that moderate Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema don't back out of this, or make sure that Republicans don't kill the deal one way or another, even though I don't really see a way that they can do that. Remember, they can all vote no, and they can still pass this bill. They can even basically abstain from voting, and they can still pass it. So, nonetheless, she's put in, like I said, I've said this before, that I don't really think that she needs to put this insurance. I think that they could basically just pass the physical infrastructure bill and just get it out of the way. And then I thought that was the plan before she did this. Pass part one, get it out of the way, and then pass part two. But she's saying, no, I don't really want to do things that way, which is, it's kind of fine. I don't really see any bad reason to do this, but she's basically saying, no, I want to put an insurance policy on the stimulus package just to make sure that it passes. So what she's saying is going to happen is pass part one in the Senate, send it over to the House. We're not going to vote on it until part two passes, which is the massive $3.5 trillion stimulus package, which could end up being more than that. Then pass both of those over to the House, and we will vote on them both at the same time or back to back. And this will ensure that both of these packages pass. So Yeah, we could be having part one voted on, at least the initial stages of it, as early as tonight. They have announced they have an initial deal. We'll have to see what happens on that. I will keep you up to date with everything. Also, there has been some major news today and over the last like 48 hours over vaccine requirements. Also, going along with testing requirements in certain capacities in the United States. We've seen this happen over the last 48 hours in other countries like France and Italy. And this is kind of happening in some capacity in the United States. As you can see in this headline from CNBC here, President Biden will require federal workers to get the COVID vaccine or submit to testing. President Biden is expected to announce his administration will require federal workers to be vaccinated for coronavirus or submit to strict testing measures. Check this out. President Biden this week is expected to announce his administration will require federal workers to be vaccinated for coronavirus or submit to strict testing requires, NBC News reported today. Biden will set to unveil new rules, which followed a White House internal policy review during a speech Thursday of last week. Two administration officials told NBC it is unclear when the changes will go into effect. Biden is also expected to announce new steps that his administration is taking to try and boost the U.S. vaccination rates, which has slowed significantly in recent months. This is also coming because of several other government organizations that have just changed. Number one is the VA, the Veterans Affairs, just announced on July 26th, so about 48 hours ago. The VA has mandated COVID-19 vaccines among its medical employees, including the VHA facilities staff, the Office of Public and Intergovernmental Affairs, Veteran Affairs. As you can see here, the Department of Veteran Affairs Secretary Dennis McDonough announced he will make COVID-19 vaccines mandatory for Title 38 VA health care personnel, including physicians, dentists, podiatrists, optimists, registered nurse, and a whole bunch of different medical personnel who work in the VA facilities, that it is going to make the vaccines mandatory. Okay. So remember, because this is basically a private company, I mean, it's kind of an extension of the government. They can do this. Okay. So this is we're seeing this, and this is becoming more and more of a thing. Remember, we just seen multiple different countries, France, Italy, and Greece, make it mandatory for different sets of health workers, and even in some cases to go into a restaurant, you need what they're calling a health pass, basically a vaccine ID to be able to go into a restaurant. So we're starting to see more and more of this across different countries and in the US, even in some cases. So again, we just had the VA. Now, let me tell you about California and New York City that have just announced their own vaccine mandates in some limited capacities. Okay, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio says, quote, "This is about our recovery," he said Monday after announcing a vaccine mandate for New York City workers. Yes. New York City announced the guidelines similar to California's that just announced this as well, requiring around 340,000 city workers to be vaccinated by mid-September or else go through weekly testing. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said in a virtual press conference that September is the pivot point of recovery when nearly 1 million students will return to school. Unvaccinated city employees will be required to wear a mask indoors and can be removed from their places of work if they refuse to do so. New York City's largest municipal public employee union, representing 150,000 members, said some measures would need to be addressed before mandatory testing is instated. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom announced that starting next month, all state workers, healthcare workers, and those who are in, quote, high risk congregate settings will need to show proof of full vaccination or get tested once a week. Quote, we are now dealing with a pandemic of unvaccinated, and it's going to take renewed effort to protect Californians from the dangerous Delta variant, Governor Gavin Newsom said in a statement. The move comes after a percentage of people testing positive for COVID-19 in California rose from 0.7%, so less than 1%, in June, now to over 5.2% as of this week. The positivity rate from unvaccinated people is 600% higher than those who are vaccinated, according to state health officials. Wow. Wow. So again, I kind of seen this coming. I feel like I have my finger on the pulse of everything with COVID, pandemic, stimulus, what's in these packages. And again, I kind of feel like what's happening in other countries tends to kind of happen here. Not always everything word for word, but like there's over 500 colleges that are already requiring the vaccines are mandatory. We're seeing businesses do this, okay? And now we're starting to see some government organizations do this. And this is without the vaccine even being fully FDA approved. It's FDA approved for only emergency FDA approval. When and if it is fully FDA approved, which I expect will probably be sometime this year, I expect that this is going to be even more. So let's just assume that the FDA approval is fully approved this year. I will just assume or say that it will probably be a lot more mandatory vaccines. I probably think that I remember that schools, kindergarten through grade 12, first of all these colleges, like over 500 colleges that are already requiring the vaccine. Now, Ohio has done the opposite. They have banned the vaccine, at least until it's fully FDA approved. Ohio did the opposite. They banned it for all schools and colleges in the state of Ohio. But that's the only state that's done that. All these other colleges, 500 of them nationwide, are requiring it, at least for in-person school. When and if the vaccine becomes fully FDA approved, let's just assume that'll be sometime this year. I think it's going to be like required in a lot more capacity. You might be for that. You might be against that. I'm just kind of telling you what's going on. We have, in some capacity, California, New York, President Biden saying that like federal workers may have to either get vaccinated or go through weekly testing. This is kind of what is going on in our country. It's kind of a battle, right? Because some people are for this, some people are against this. Some people are saying that, like, even if you're against the getting the vaccine, you could be putting others at risk, right? Because you spread it to others, and then others could get it and potentially die. And that's kind of like the whole, like, our society as a whole argument, right? And that's kind of the battle that we're going through right now. And that's like, we had Dr. Fauci. We had him on the show, well, not on the show, but we had him on the show, like talking on, as an interview, saying that, like, if this type of vaccine hesitancy was around years ago, that we would still have polio like running rampant across, the United States, and other diseases that basically the vaccines have gotten rid of for the most part. So I don't know, I personally think it should be your choice in a way, but on the other hand, I don't know. It's really a tough decision. It's not really for me to decide. But on the other hand, we do kind of have these government agencies that are kind of deciding it for you in a way. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to keep you up to date on what's going on with our country, what's going on with stimulus, They have a deal announced. Let's hope they start voting on it today. Remember, there's going to be several votes along the way. Let's hope they have this wrapped up with part one by the end of this week. Then we move on to part two and hope we have that wrapped up here within the next few days as well. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on mandatory vaccines. Are you for it? Are you against it? And where do you think we will be going forward on that? Where do you think we'll be in a few months' time? Where do you think we'll be with a fully FDA approved and mandatory vaccines? Because the wheels are kind of in motion. I can kind of see where we're going with this, and I'm not really for it or against it because that's your choice. But I can kind of see where it's moving. You can let me know your thoughts on that. I'll keep you up to date on everything going on. Make sure to subscribe down below. Remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click this top video here to watch my newest stimulus check video next. And this video is about President Biden's Social Security raise and how they want to raise Social Security benefits. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.